بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I ask Allah Ta'ala to grant all of us the sincere intention and the proper comprehension. Allahumma ameen. It came in the Sahih Hadith, من هم بحسنة فلم يعملها كتبها الله عنده حسنة كاملة. من هم here means the one who hesitates about doing a good deed. So whoever hesitates about doing a good deed, like should I do it, should I not do it, without having the firm intention to do it, however, this person was more inclined towards doing it, and then he ended up not doing it, then Allah Ta'ala would grant him a hasanah, meaning a good deed would be written for that person. So man hamma bihasanatin, whoever hesitates about doing a good deed, فَلَمْ يَعْمَلْهَا, but then he doesn't do it, كَتَبَهَا اللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حَسَنَةً كَامِلَةً. Allah would make it recorded for that Muslim as a complete good deed. Subhanallah al-Azim. This came in the Sahih Hadith. So because of this person's hesitation, which leaned more towards doing that good deed, Allah the Exalted would count it for him as a complete good deed. Subhanallah. And it was mentioned in the Qudusi Hadith that is related by Al-Imam Muslim that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah the Exalted said, إذا تحدث عبدي في نفسه أن يعمل حسنة فأنا أكتبها له حسنة كاملة, which means if my slave is thinking about doing a good deed, meaning he is hesitating as we explained, then it means then I, meaning Allah, will count it as a complete good deed for him. So this is a Qudusi hadith, which is a hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Allah the Exalted said. So it is not Quran, but it is called a Qudusi or Qudsi hadith. It is something that Allah revealed to the Prophet, but it is not Quran. So in this Qudsi hadith, again, Allah the Exalted said, إذا تحدث عبدي في نفسه أن يعمل حسنة فأنا أكتبها له حسنة كاملة. If my slave is thinking about doing a good deed, meaning hesitating, then I will count it as a complete good deed for him. And subhanallah, this is for the hesitation that is leaning more towards doing the good deed, as we mentioned. And if the slave had the firm intention to do a good deed, then he is also rewarded for that, even if he didn't do it, even if he ended up not doing it. He gets a good deed written for him for that firm intention to do that good deed. Subhanallah. And this judgment is taken from many other hadiths other than this one. This is not the only hadith from which this judgment is taken. Abu Darda, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, إنما من أتى فراشه وهو ينوي أن يقوم الليل أي بالصلاة فغلبته عيناه فلم يقم حتى طلع الفجر كتب له أجر قيام الليل. He said, indeed, if someone went to bed while intending to wake up in the night for qiyamul layl. This means to wake up at night and pray in the night, which is something that is so honorable and it is so, subhanallah, high in status amongst the good deeds. And it is the way of the Prophet and it is the way of the pious people. They get up at night and they pray extra prayers, not from what is obligatory. They pray optional prayers for the sake of Allah. Subhanallah, at a time when most of the people are asleep, most of the people are seeking comfort in their beds and so on, these pious people, they get up at this time and they pray for the sake of Allah. So this companion, Abu Darda, he said, what means, indeed, if someone went to bed while intending to wake up in the night to pray at night, qiyamul layl, however, he slept through the night and he didn't wake up until Fajr was in, then he will have the reward of praying in the night, of qiyamul layl. Yani he will have the reward of qiyamul layl written for him. And that means that he will get a reward that is similar to the reward of actually praying in the night, of the one who actually prayed in the night. And why does he get that reward? It is because he had a firm intention to wake up and pray. But subhanallah, he ended up sleeping through the night. Yani he didn't actually wake up. But because of that beautiful intention that he had, that firm intention to do something for the sake of Allah, Allah rewards the Muslim immensely. Subhanallah. So Allah, the Exalted, out of His generosity, would grant that Muslim man or that Muslim woman the reward that resembles the reward of praying in the night. And in the hadith that we mentioned, that the one who hesitated about doing a good deed, but was leaning more towards doing it and ended up not doing it, the Prophet said that such a person receives a complete reward. In Arabic, he said, kamila. Kamila. This means complete, which means that the reward would not be lessened due to it being a hesitation without reaching the level of being a firm intention. And it will not be lessened due to him actually not doing it. Subhanallah. Rather, that Muslim, for having that mere hesitation to do a good deed, like, should I do it or should I not? But he's leaning more towards doing it. Subhanallah, that Muslim would get the reward of a complete good deed by his mere hesitation, which leaned more towards doing it. And this is out of the great mercy and the great generosity of Allah the Exalted with His slaves. Subhanallah. Now, if the person took care of that matter and he or she actually did the good deed properly, then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كُتِبَ لَهُ بِهَا عَشْرُ حَسَنَاتٍ. Subhanallah. Yani, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, that person will receive 10 times the reward for that deed. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that if a Muslim does a good deed, they actually do a good deed, they do it properly, validly, then the least amount of reward they will get is 10 times. So they won't just get 1 hasana, they will have 10 hasanat, which means it will be multiplied, that one deed that they did, by at least 10. Subhanallah, because they actually did it. It also came in the hadith, من قال السلام عليكم كتب له عشر حسنات. It means the one who says السلام عليكم, he would get 10 hasanat, that is 10 rewards. فإذا قال السلام عليكم ورحمة الله كتب له 20. And if he adds to that ورحمة الله, he gets 20 rewards, 20 حسنات. فإذا قال السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته كتب له 30. The Prophet said, and if he added وبركاته by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, he gets another 10 rewards, so 30 rewards, 30 hasanat in total. And so this is something good to do. When you give the salam to a Muslim, you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And when you reply with the salam, you say wa alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You get more reward. You get more reward. And I want to mention that when it comes to a man and a woman who are marriageable, like for example, a strange man and a strange woman, so it's not her husband, it's not his wife, it's not a rahim, a family member like the father or the brother or the son or the daughter or the grandmother and so on. Rather, it's someone that you can marry, they're marriageable, however, you're not married to them. So they're a strange person. Then the scholars said, it's better that you don't give them salam. The scholars said it is makruh, meaning that you don't get reward for that. You don't get reward for giving the salam. And so a woman, if a man gives her the salam, it's better for her not to reply. And likewise, if a woman gives the brother a salam, saying assalamu alaikum, it's better that he doesn't reply. Now, keep in mind, yani this is the case, this is the mas'ala. However, there are some situations where if you're using wisdom, you might reply. So it might be wiser to reply in some situations because some people, they don't know this ruling. And trust me, a lot of people, they don't know this ruling, even people who have learned. Even people who have learned. A lot of people, they don't know this ruling. They don't know what the scholars said about this. And so imagine with people that don't even acquire the knowledge and they don't sit in the circles of knowledge and the lessons and they don't attend the religious gatherings. If they give you salam, someone like that, and you don't reply, it might push them away from learning because they might see it as you doing something wrong, for example. Like, how can you not reply to my salam? But the one who understands, the one who acquires the knowledge, yani they understand. And I'm not saying it's sinful. That's not what we're saying. We're saying it's better to leave it out. It's better to leave it out in those cases. But you may have a situation where it would be wiser for you to give the salam, for example. So every time one does a good deed, he gets at least 10 hasanat, 10 rewards. And it may be multiplied by 700 times, not just by 10. As is mentioned in the Book of Allah and in the Hadith of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the one good deed may be written as 700 hasanat, 700 rewards for the person, and not just 10 rewards. So 10 is the least that it would be multiplied by. Subhanallah. It is mentioned in the hadith that a man came with his camel, which was tied with a rope, and he brought it to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said to the Prophet, هذه في سبيل الله, meaning, this is for the sake of Allah for al-jihad. Meaning by that, O Messenger of Allah, use it for what benefits the Muslims for al-jihad. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to that man, إِنَّ لَكَ بِهَا سَبْعَمِائَةِ نَاقَةٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. He said to him, indeed, you will receive 700 camels in paradise for this one camel that you are giving away now for the sake of Allah. Subhanallah. And when we mention al-jihad, as you know, what is meant is the fighting that is in accordance with the religious rules, not the jihad that is claimed by those extremist fanatics when they transgress beyond the rules of the religion and they cause so much destruction and harm unjustly. That is not what we're talking about, of course. And the hasanah may be multiplied by much more than 700 times. As Allah the Exalted said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Zumar, verse 10, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. This verse means, indeed, those who obey Allah and they fear Him by fulfilling the obligations and refraining from the sins, and they are patient with the hardships that they are afflicted with, they will be rewarded with a great reward that only Allah knows its extent. This is the meaning of the ayah. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. The meaning is those who are pious and they are patient with the hardships. Yani, they fulfill their obligations and they stay away from the sins and they are patient with what Allah afflicts them with. These types of people, they would get a reward. They will get a reward in the hereafter that is so immense that only Allah knows the extent of it, meaning it wasn't even mentioned. Ibn Hibban narrated in the Sahih Hadith that when the saying of Allah Ta'ala was revealed in Surah Al-Baqarah, this ayah here, ayah 261, مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم. This ayah means the allegory of those, allegory meaning example, the allegory of those who spend their monies in the way of Allah is like the allegory of a grain that sprouted 7 ears. In every ear is 100 grains, and Allah multiplies for whomever He wills. And Allah is wasi', knowing. The Prophet ﷺ said when this ayah was revealed, Rabbi zid ummati, O my Lord, increase my nation. Meaning, O my Lord, give my ummah more, give the Muslims from my nation more than this. So then Allah the Exalted revealed in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 245, من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون. It means, who is it that shall give for the sake of Allah a charity like a loan to be repaid as a reward, so that Allah would multiply its reward for him by many times. And Allah constricts the sustenance and expands it. and for his judgment you shall be returned to life. And this means that they will receive much more than 700. So this means that they will receive much more than 700. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Rabbi zid ummati. O my Lord, give my nation more. Subhanallah. So Allah the Exalted revealed in Surah Al-Zumar, Ayah 10, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُم بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ, which means that Allah completely fulfills the reward of the patient ones without any judgment. And that means that those who obey Allah and fear Him by fulfilling their obligations and refraining from the sins, and they are patient with the hardships that Allah afflicts them with, that Allah tests them with, these people will be rewarded with a great reward, the extent of which only Allah knows. And that means that the reward of those pious and patient Muslims is so much and so great that only Allah the Exalted knows it. It is multiplied by so much. And that number of reward, it wasn't mentioned in the Quran due to how great it is. Subhanallah. Due to how great it is. And amongst the wisdoms that this number was not mentioned is so that the people would be motivated to do more good deeds, seeking that great reward from Allah. This is a method used in the Arabic language to express or to show the great number of something. Yani here it is showing that this reward is so great in number. It's so great that it wasn't even mentioned. It wasn't mentioned how much it actually is. Rather, it is known to Allah. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us amongst that group of Muslims who get that immense reward. Allahumma ameen ya Rabb. Allahumma ameen. And for the reward to be multiplied more for someone, meaning more than that minimum 10 times for any good deed, there are different reasons. Yani, in order for one to get, or let's say, there are reasons for which a Muslim's deed would be rewarded by more than just 10 times. There are different reasons for that happening. So in other words, how does one achieve and acquire this great reward? That is, having their good deeds multiplied by more than 10 times, which, as we said, is the least that one would get for actually doing a good deed for Allah's sake. That means they did it sincerely, they did it validly, they did it in the proper way. The least they would get is 10 rewards. But there are reasons that one would get more than just 10. There are reasons that there are reasons for their reward being multiplied by a lot more. The scholars said sometimes it is due to the level of sincerity of the one doing that deed. And that is because not all of the sincere people are at the same level of sincerity. Subhanallah. Not all of the sincere people are at the same level of sincerity. So at times, because of the level of sincerity in someone's heart, the deed that they are doing would be multiplied by so much. That is the reward for it. And at times, it is due to the high status of the one that is doing the deed. Yani, because the one doing that deed is someone who has a high status to Allah. And so at times, because that person has a high status to Allah, the reward for doing that deed would be multiplied for them. Subhanallah. Or it may be due to the status and the merit of the deed itself. So it would depend on the time that the deed is done, for example. And that is because sometimes a deed would have a higher status and a higher merit if it was done at certain times versus other times. Like what? Like times of need, times when that deed is needed more. And also in certain places versus other places. If it was done in certain places versus other places. Or it would be due to the status, as we said, of the one doing it or how sincere the doer is. So all of these matters, they affect how much reward a person receives. Subhanallah. And so the intelligent person would ponder into this, right? They would ponder into this and they would exert a lot of effort into ensuring that he or she is very sincere when they do any act of obedience, any act of worship. And an example of what we mentioned is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified that the good deeds that are done during the sacred months of al-Ashhur al-Hurum, they are rewarded more by Allah than doing the same deeds in other than these months. This is why they said that the optional fasting during those months is better than in other months. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified that if one of the companions from amongst the sabiqun al-awwalun and amongst the muhajirun, yani those amongst those who embraced al-Islam early on, these are as-sabiqun al-awwalun, those who were amongst the first people to embrace al-Islam. And also amongst al-muhajirun, the immigrants, or al-ansar, those who greeted them and welcomed them in al-Madinah, these people that benefited the Muslims so much at that time. The Prophet said, if one of those people was to give 1 mud of wheat, so a small amount of wheat or barley in charity, then he would get a reward that is more than the reward of another companion who isn't amongst that elite group of companions. Even if that other companion who is not from the elite group donated the amount of Mount Uhud. You know the mountain, Uhud? It's a huge mountain. The Prophet said if that companion who is not from the elite group donated as much as Mount Uhud in gold, for the sake of Allah, his reward would not be anywhere near the one who donated a mud of barley or wheat, for example. And 1 mud is when you cup your 2 hands together and you fill it with something. So imagine you cup your 2 hands together and it was filled with wheat or barley. The Prophet said, one of those elite companions, and we're calling them elite because they have a very high rank in comparison with the rest of the companions. And that elite group, it includes as-sabiqun al-awwalun, those that embraced al-Islam early on. And it includes al-muhajirun, those that migrated from Mecca to al-Madinah when it was very difficult and there was a lot of tension and a lot of harm and injustice from the non-Muslims and so on. Some people had to leave behind all of their belongings in order to leave. Subhanallah, it was tough. It was very tough. People had to make decisions that would change their lives. Subhanallah. So if it was one of those people as well, they're included in the elite group. And Al-Ansar. Al-Ansar are those Muslims in Al-Madinah who welcomed those that were migrating. They shared their food, they shared their shelter, they shared their belongings. It was mentioned that some of them, they were ready to divorce some of their wives so that their brothers could marry them afterwards. Subhanallah. So, and they were doing that all for the sake of Allah. They didn't want anything from the dunya for that. They wanted the reward from Allah. So those people, the Prophet said, if one of them gave one mud, the fill of a pair of cupped hands of like wheat or barley, for example, if they gave that amount in charity, sincerely, the reward they would get is a lot more than the reward of another companion who is not amongst that elite group. However, he gave in gold as much as Mount Uhud. Subhanallah. This is due to the merit of those people from that elite group and their great status to Allah. So that is an example of how a person may get much more reward for doing a lot less of something based on their status to Allah. Subhanallah. And the reward is also multiplied depending on the need of that deed. An example of need is when the Muslims in Al-Madinah needed water. They needed water, and there was not enough water except some water that a blasphemer had. One of the kuffar, one of the non-Muslims, he had a well. Subhanallah, he had a well. And he used to make it very difficult for the Muslims to take water from that well. So our master Uthman, radiyallahu anhu wa nafa'ana bihi, he bought half of the well from that non-Muslim for a very high price. Yani he told him a high price, but he still bought it for the sake of Allah. So he paid a great price so that kafir would sell him half of the well, not even the entire well, half of the well. So when he sold him half of the well, what did our master Uthman do? Radiyallahu anhu. He left it for free for the Muslims to benefit from, for the sake of Allah. After that, the blasphemer saw what he did, yani he saw what happened, and he sold him the other half for a low price. So our master Uthman made the whole well available for free for the benefit of the Muslims. When Uthman bought it, the Prophet ﷺ said, and he did that, the Prophet said, Uthman will get paradise for this. Uthman will get paradise for this. And on top of that, to mention another incident, the Prophet ﷺ needed to prepare the army that was known as the army of al-Usra. Subhanallah. And this is the army that went out to the place of Tabuk. And it was a difficult time. So the Prophet ﷺ encouraged the Muslims to donate to support that army. When our master Uthman radiallahu anhu heard that, he said, I will give away 100 camels, 100 camels that are fully equipped to go for that army. Yani, they were fully equipped, meaning that they have everything they needed. Those camels had everything that they needed. So he said, I will give 100 of them away, fully equipped for the sake of Allah, to strengthen the Muslims. So when he did that, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the Muslims again to donate. What does that mean? It means that 100 is not enough to fulfill that need that existed. So Uthman said, I will give 100 more camels for the sake of Allah, fully equipped. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the Muslims again to donate. And then Uthman, may Allah raise his rank and benefit us by him, he said, I will give 100 more camels. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, ما على عثمان ما فعل بعد هذا. Which means, no matter what Uthman does after that, he will be in paradise. And this is because of that deed. That deed that Uthman did at that time, for it having a great need more than other times. So there was a great need then. So the reward that he got is greater than if that deed was done at a different time. And subhanallah, I want to mention that amongst the best deeds that we can do nowadays, after, of course, fulfilling the obligations, the personal obligations, and refraining from the sins, is supporting the da'wah. And supporting the da'wah, the call to al-Islam, it can happen in many different ways. It can happen by teaching, for example, and spreading the religious knowledge, teaching the creed. This is an essential. It is something that people need. And we know that most Muslims, they don't attend lessons regularly. They don't. And so we know that this is something that is needed to spread the creed and to spread the religious knowledge. Also, because there are many misguided people that exist nowadays. And if we are not teaching the people what is correct, they might end up learning, or they might end up going to people that will teach them what is not correct, that will give them poison, basically. So this is something that is really needed nowadays. It is really needed. We live at a time when many of the scholars passed away. Yes, there are still scholars that are still alive, but it isn't like the past when there would be scholars everywhere, or in every city, in every town, you'd have like top scholars and great scholars and very knowledgeable people. It isn't like that nowadays. And so there is a great need for the knowledge to be transmitted and to be taught. The one who does that sincerely, Allah knows best how much reward they will get. Really, Allah knows best. But it is immense, without a doubt, because there is a huge need nowadays for this knowledge to be taught and spread. And this knowledge, like the creed, is what people need in order to die upon al-Islam, right? You need to know what the correct belief is. You need to ensure that you have the correct belief. Otherwise, if a person died upon other than the correct belief, Like they didn't believe in Allah correctly, for example, like those who believe that God is something you can imagine. There are people that actually think that God is a body, like similar to a human, but a very huge body that is somewhere in the sky. There are people that think that about God. And when they pray, that's who they claim to be praying to. And really, there is no body like that in the sky. Subhanallah. There are angels in the sky, but that's not what they're talking about. So, the one who believes that, they wouldn't be Muslim. If they died upon that, they wouldn't enter paradise. They would not enter paradise. Subhanallah al-Azim. So the one who's teaching that knowledge, you're not just strengthening the Muslims. You're not just strengthening the Ummah. You are, in essence, saving people from blasphemy. You are saving people, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, from what would be the reason that they would be in hellfire forever without an end. This is something immense. This is so big. If people truly understood it, they would exert more effort to teach that, to teach the creed and to teach the knowledge of the religion. Even if you're only giving someone a lesson of like 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, which is something that I think every one of us can do. You might chat with your neighbor for a couple of minutes and you find an opportunity to teach them something. Or you get creative in how you start the conversation, for example, and you do it in a way to make this benefit reach them. And so you don't leave them except with this great benefit. Subhanallah, the one who does that, really Allah knows best how much reward they would get. You might be speaking to your family member overseas and you benefit them with something. You mention it for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. If you see that they are accepting and they are, they're open to listening to more. Some people are very closed off, but still you want to try and benefit them. So this is something, although, brothers and sisters, we live at a time right now when, it's a very dark time, right, in the world. And so many haram things happen, so many bad things take place, so many sins are widespread, so much injustice. Although we live during this time, look at who is the president of the US. Subhanallah. Look at other presidents and people in power around the world. We've become more desensitized to it, but really it's ludicrous when you think about it, that people like that are in power. People like that are assuming positions of authority. It's actually crazy when you think about it, right? It's like a joke. Subhanallah. Although the state of the world is like this, every one of us, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, we have an opportunity to still reach a very, very high rank. Although most people, they will not reach a very high rank, we have that opportunity. First of all, Allah the Exalted facilitated for every one of us to have access to the Islamic knowledge from upright and trustworthy teachers. Most of the people on earth, they don't have that. Most of the people on earth aren't even Muslim. And from those who are Muslim, most of them, they do not acquire the knowledge as they should. And they were not guided to do that. But every one of us was. And subhanallah, through that, we know what we need to do, we know what we need to fulfill, and we know what we must stay away from. And the one who does that, they will be pious. They will be amongst the best people on earth. And then if they increase in that, and they do more optional deeds and they exert effort, even like what we are saying by teaching, this is one of the fastest ways to reach a very high rank in righteousness by fulfilling the obligations and refraining from the sins and teaching the knowledge of the religion. It's one of the fastest ways that one can reach al-wilaayah because of how great the deed is and how much in need of it we are right now. People are in need of this knowledge. So, what I wanted to say is, although we live at a very strange time and there's a lot of bad things that are happening nowadays in the world, and so many people's hearts are very, very, very corrupt, and we hear about outrageous things that are taking place, right? Pedophiles and a'udhu billah, gay people, so many bad things that are very widespread, more than before. Still, we are living at a time when Allah the Exalted gave us access to this knowledge, and we know, as we just learned now, that some deeds would be rewarded much, much, much more during a time when they are more in need. So, right now, one of the things that we are in need of is the spread of the Islamic knowledge. So, the one who is able to do that, and of course, you have to learn in order to do that. A person can't just go online and, go on a random website and copy and paste some things into his notes or into a Word document, yani, and just go and teach from that. That is not how it's done. The Prophet said, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ, that indeed knowledge is gained through learning. Like, how do you acquire the knowledge? You have to learn it. That means you learn it from a teacher, from the mouths of teachers, not from books, not from the internet, not from a random person on a TV channel, for example. Subhanallah. So that's one way that one can support the da'wah. By the way, this is like, if you want, we started by saying one of the best things that a person can do nowadays that would be rewarded immensely for them is supporting the da'wah. And we said, think of it like an umbrella. Under that, there is like an umbrella of different things a person can do in order to support the da'wah. So one of them is teaching. But it might not be through teaching for some people. It might be through supporting the da'wah through money, through their wealth. Perhaps someone has a lot of wealth and they donate to the da'wah. They donate to our association, for example, which is a trusted association that uses that money truly for the benefit of the Muslims. Not every association nowadays does that. That's for sure. And it doesn't have to be a person that has a lot of money. If you're someone that doesn't have a lot of money, you still might give some of that money away for the sake of Allah. And your reward would be immense, inshallah, if you were sincere. Because there is a great need for that nowadays. The need is so big. I am certain, without any doubt, that on the day of judgment, when we realize the value of the good deeds, especially those that one could have done during these times of need that we're talking about right now, that the da'wah is in need of, but they didn't do them, they will be so regretful and they will wish that they did more. They will wish that they donated. They will wish that they kept donating every time they had money and every time they were able to do it. However, they preferred to spend that money on other things. Subhanallah. And likewise for all the other deeds that we're talking about, like teaching, the one who was able to do that, for example, but they didn't, they will definitely regret that. Every one of us, we will regret it. And helping the da'wah can also be by physically helping, physically supporting it. They might be in need, for example, of setting up the hall or setting up something for an event. And so they need people to actually physically pick up chairs and tables and put them in places and fix things, for example. And so a person can help with their body, with their strength. You might have another skill that is needed. A person might have a skill that is needed. A person might have, for example, something in their background that benefits the da'wah somehow. You might speak a language, and by you speaking that language, you're able to help in the da'wah. Subhanallah. You might have knowledge in a particular field, for example, and that brings help to the da'wah and support to the da'wah in some way. Or it might be your profession. You might be a doctor or an engineer or something like that, and that might bring benefit to the da'wah in some way. You might know how to make like videos that help spread the Islamic knowledge. And you put things together and you have a good eye for these things that attracts the people, that helps attract the people, and is a reason for people to benefit. Ad-da'watu fan. Da'wah is like an art, meaning that you use creativity to benefit people. Yani, you use wisdom to benefit the people. You see what works to bring the people to listen to the Islamic knowledge lessons, for example, and so on. Really, this is the goal, is to benefit the people. The goal is to benefit others. The goal is to rescue others from whatever would be harmful to them for their dunya and their hereafter. This is what the prophets of God came with, to rescue the people from blasphemy, to rescue the people from falling into sins and the consequences that come with that. This is something immense, whether it's done now or it's done at any time. However, right now, there is a huge need for it. A huge need for it. Subhanallah. And some of the deeds themselves are also better than other deeds. And that is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and by the way, what we said right now, the things that we mentioned, they are better than many other deeds. The Prophet said, "Man ahya sunnati عند فساد أمتي له أجر شهيد ولو مات على فراشه." Which means the one who revives my methodology, and here the Prophet's methodology means his creed and the religious rules that he came with. So the aqidah, the belief, the matters of the belief, and the religious rules that the Prophet came with. That is what the methodology of the Prophet means here. So he said, the one who revives my methodology at a time when there is a lot of corruption and misguidance in this nation, the Prophet said, then such a person will receive a reward that is similar to the reward of a martyr, even if that person dies on his own bed. So it means he wasn't out there actually like fighting for the sake of Allah and then he died in the battlefield. No, he was teaching people. He was reviving the methodology of the Prophet, meaning he was spreading the aqidah and the religious rules. He was clarifying for people at a time when there is a lot of corruption and misguidance. And there's a lot of corruption and misguidance nowadays. Yani, that is without a doubt. Even the non-Muslims know that. So that is because of this deed containing a great merit and the great importance that it contains as well. So the one who dies while implementing and teaching the people the creed, the aqidah, and the knowledge of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, then he will receive a reward that is similar to the reward of a martyr, even if that person dies on his bed. Meaning he dies in the comfort of his home on his bed. but still he receives such an immense reward. We ask Allah to grant us that reward. Allahumma ameen. And to make us amongst the pious Muslims. Allahumma ameen ya Rabb. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.